ushers in a soft, almost understated shift, like quietly stepping from one familiar room into another, distinctly new space. Although your physical existence ends, your awareness continues carrying the essence of who you are into another realm. You are still thinking, reflecting, wondering, but the sense of time and solidity you once knew changes into something more gentle and expansive. People often speak of a great silence or darkness after death, but according to the intuitive findings of Edgar Cayce, sometimes referred to as the sleeping prophet, that isn't entirely accurate. Instead, there is a transition comparable to a slowed down, graceful unfolding. If you have ever felt a continued presence of a loved one who has passed on, that experience may be more than just wishful thinking or an overactive imagination. Cayce's insights suggest that the soul's departure from the physical body does not always result in an instant relocation to some far-off spiritual plane. Instead, there is often a period, perhaps days, months, or even years, where the soul hovers near the earthly dimension, gradually disentangling from its former life. Emotional ties, such as love, worry, guilt, and longing, can remain potent, gently anchoring a newly departed soul to places and people it still cares for. Consider the analogy of stepping outside a house you've lived in all your life. The sunlight might feel startlingly bright. The exterior environment is at once inviting and disorienting. You turn around, noticing loved ones in mourning, hearing voices calling out despair or whispering in prayer. Perhaps you attempt to console them, yet you are no longer confined to the physical. You may realize that you can move freely, even though attempts to speak or touch may no longer register in the usual ways. Some souls find it perplexing, especially if death was sudden or traumatic. In such instances, the soul might not immediately grasp that it has in fact crossed a boundary. Cayce's readings convey that these moments aren't necessarily distressing so much as an echo of life's ongoing continuum. Some souls remain near beloved children, spouses, or dear friends, trying to ensure comfort and solace during their grieving period. Others linger where they passed a hospital bed or an accident site, either out of confusion or a tender sense of responsibility. The sense of time now shifts, so what feels like a fleeting second to those still living might stretch out into something else entirely for the soul, and vice versa. Free from a ticking clock, the newly departed soul drifts in a different rhythm, one less bound by earthly constraints. Crucially, Cayce articulated that it's not physical death itself that holds a soul close. It is emotion, strong unresolved feelings that can act like magnets. Love especially is a potent anchor. For a mother worried about a child's future, or for an individual who left behind urgent, unresolved burdens, the soul may choose to linger, offering comfort or seeking it. When you sense a faint chill, smell a perfume that evokes strong memories, or think you see someone in the corner of your eye who cannot be there, these might not be mere coincidences. According to Cayce and many other spiritual teachings, these could be manifestations of a soul's presence, graceful reminders that the bond we share transcends physical boundaries. To understand the process of the soul lingering after death, we must first acknowledge that the boundary between the living and the deceased is more permeable than it might appear. Various traditions This window is considered a sacred interval where the soul remains acutely receptive to earthly emotions and energetic currents. Edgar Cayce's insights fit into a long line of mystical and religious teachings that describe this in-between period. He often likened the process of dying to being slowly unwrapped from the physical self. Imagine divesting yourself of layers of garments you've worn all your life. At first, you may not even notice that you're now clothed in something ethereal, if at all. The newly disembodied soul could still feel the ambient environment, sense the presence of loved ones, notice the hush in the hospital, or the murmured condolences at a funeral. Cayce explained that the soul often attends its own memorial services or watches from a vantage point that grants awareness but not direct participation. A crucial element in this stage is emotional resonance. For souls weighed down by unfinished relationships, regretful exchanges, unspoken words, or fervent attachments, the after-death journey can involve a period of reconciling with these intensities. Love and fear, in particular, can have a profound hold. A person who deeply loved their children might stay near to ease the pain or to ensure in some spiritual manner that they are okay. A soul racked by guilt, confusion or disbelief might remain close out of an urgent need for clarity or comfort. This notion that consciousness endures offers a gentle perspective on why we so often feel sense or even see departed loved ones in those tender times. One common aspect many have reported is a sense of surprise among those souls who didn't anticipate their own passing victims of accidents, violence, or sudden health crises. Instead of a peaceful slip into the next world, they experience a moment of shock and disbelief, leading them to linger in familiar surroundings. According to Cayce, divine guides or angelic presences often come forth in such situations, attempting to clarify and reassure. Some souls accept help readily. Others need a bit more time, especially if they have strong emotional attachments or psychological barriers that kept them from recognizing the spiritual dimension during life. Equally significant is how time is perceived differently. Once freed from the physical, the soul's experience of moments expands or contracts based on how quickly it processes, releases, or transforms certain emotional energies. Days might feel like minutes, or the presence of a beloved spirit might remain consistently strong over months of our linear time. Instead of a linear progression, think of it as a fluid continuum governed by spiritual readiness and resonance. Thus, from an earthly vantage point, some souls seem to linger, leaving gentle signs in a bedroom at a gravesite or in the bright corners of shared memories. Why do some souls linger while others appear to pass swiftly? This question emerges frequently in near-death studies and spiritual discourses. According to Cayce, emotions and attachments can tether a soul like invisible threads anchoring it to earthly locales and relationships. Even love can become a reason for delay, though this delay is not necessarily an affliction. A mother who wants to ensure her child's well-being might sense the child's grief and remain to offer solace. Similarly, unresolved conflicts like a long-standing feud between siblings or the guilt from a strained relationship may anchor a soul until an energetic resolution or partial sense of closure can be achieved. In more dramatic instances, the soul might not initially comprehend that it is departed. Some may attempt to communicate with caregivers instances, the presence of guiding spirits or ancestors becomes an invaluable source of reassurance, gently explaining that the door to the physical world has closed for them. Yet this period is not solely about confusion or reluctance. The soul is also unraveling layers of identity, the name, the roles, the habits it accumulated. Freed from the body, the soul begins to see itself more holistically, but that clarity might take time to register. The entire concept of self transforms. When Casey spoke of the process, he revealed that many souls report an unexpected sense of liberation. Pain dissolves. Fear evaporates, and a sweet tranquility envelops them. Even so, the impetus to stay near loved ones or to revisit cherished places remains strong, propelled by the emotional momentum built up over a lifetime. From a more practical perspective, families often notice subtle phenomena suggesting the soul's nearness. Lights might flicker, electronics might act up, cherished photographs could inexplicably shift from their usual place. These experiences are frequently dismissed or rationalized, but spiritual perspectives interpret them as gentle nudges. A soul's attempt to communicate, confirm presence, or provide a comforting message to those left behind. Other times, we receive signs through sudden fragrances or distinctive sensations, drawing attention to a presence that defies a purely physical explanation. Casey urged people not to respond with fear to such signs, but with openness, recognizing that this is a natural, compassionate extension of the love we share, can reframe the experience. Instead of haunting or troubling, these instances can become precious, healing exchanges between realms, moments where the fabric of reality grows permeable, allowing love to flow freely between souls, no matter which side of the veil they lead. And in these quiet moments of connection, both the living and the departed discover that true separation is an illusion, that the bond of consciousness transcends the confines of physical form. Among the many threads that Casey wove into his descriptions of life after death, emotional energy stands out as a particularly significant force. He often emphasized that the soul's experiences in the afterlife are shaped as much by internal states, such as regret, love, compassion, or denial, as by any external conditions. This resonates with other esoteric traditions which suggest that what you experience internally, your intentions, your emotional baggage, your attachments, plays a significant role in determining how smoothly you navigate the immediate post-death realms. A poignant illustration arises when someone crosses over carrying the weight of guilt or anger. These emotions do not dissipate the moment the last breath is taken. Rather, they may follow the soul like a lingering echo. This is not a matter of punitive judgment in the sense that certain religious doctrines might present, but more so a natural consequence of where the soul's energy resides. The soul that harbored deep resentments or regrets may remain close to the situations or individuals involved, unwilling or unable to relinquish that emotional intensity. In doing so, it might spend an extended period observing, reflecting, and possibly trying to foster healing either for itself or for those it left behind. But the very same principle holds true for love. A fervent, protective love can keep a soul nearby, offering subtle reassurances to children or partners. The presence might manifest through comforting dreams, peaceful sensations, or moments of intuitive clarity. These experiences can be profoundly consoling for those grieving on the earthly plane, serving as gentle affirmations that love endures, even when the body does not. death with greater serenity. For them, the transition may be smoother or more direct, as they more readily recognize the shift in consciousness for what it is. Even so, they might choose to linger for a while to ensure messages of peace and love are conveyed to those left behind. In some cases, cultural rituals and traditions can significantly shape a soul's experience or readiness. Funeral rites, communal prayers, and sacred ceremonies offer more than closure for the living. They also serve as guiding beacons for the recently departed. In traditions such as Tibetan Buddhism, for example, the initial period after death is navigated with meticulous spiritual guidance to help the soul avoid confusion. Casey's work aligns with these traditions, underscoring the importance of reverence prayer and clear intentions during the initial phase of transition. Such focused energy can be a lifeline for a newly departed soul, gently turning them toward higher spiritual frequencies and away from attachments that keep them tethered. In effect, the soul does not exist in a vacuum after death. It is influenced by the energetic environment, including the thoughts, emotions, and heartfelt intentions of those still embodied. Our capacity for empathy and our willingness to engage in healing conversations, both spoken aloud and offered silently, can create ripples of transformation, not only for us, but also for the souls hovering in that delicate threshold between physical life and full immersion in the spiritual realm. When trying to discern whether a departed soul lingers intentionally or by some unconscious compulsion, a vital concept arises: readiness. Casey taught that once the physical body is gone, the soul immediately encounters its own interior landscape in a sharper, more direct way than was possible in life. Emotions and beliefs left unresolved do not vanish. Rather, they can appear magnified in the subtle realm. In many spiritual teachings, this is likened to a mirror that reflects one's true state without the protective filters we often rely on in our mortal lives. For individuals who lived with a sense of acceptance, curiosity, and spiritual openness, the threshold after death might resemble a gentle corridor leading to higher vibrations. For those who denied any possibility of an afterlife, who were deeply fearful, or who clung tightly to material identities, this mirror might initially appear distorted, generating confusion or a sense of disorientation. Some might hover, convinced that they are still dreaming, or that if they persist, they might re-enter the life they left behind. This is where spiritual guides, angels, or simply luminous beings step in, as Casey indicated, guiding the soul with compassion and clarity. In some narratives, you will find souls described as earthbound, especially in cases of sudden traumatic death. While the term might sound ominous, it essentially points to a state where the soul remains firmly interwoven with unresolved feelings or lack of comprehension about what has transpired. The presence of these souls is often registered by loved ones through fleeting glimpses, sensations, or emotional waves that seem inexplicable from a purely rational standpoint. Helping these souls transition involves creating an atmosphere of acceptance and, if possible, providing reassurance or spiritual support through prayer ceremonies or even direct conversation spoken from the heart. Indeed, Casey's work suggests that heartfelt dialogue with someone who has passed on can be remarkably potent. You might speak to them silently, invite them to move toward peace, or express love continues transformed but unbroken through the open channel of consciousness that transcends material barriers. The ultimate message that emerges from Casey's perspective is not one of fear or separation, but of continuous relationship and compassion. Death is less a harsh severing than a transition that can be eased and supported through understanding love and active involvement on both sides. The living can send forth gentle waves of clarity, while the departed in their own time can either gather the courage to step fully into the light or choose to linger until their emotional burdens are laid to rest. Each path, each choice is honored by the larger spiritual tapestry that patiently awaits the soul's readiness to move on. As we reflect on these insights, it is important to see how Casey's worldview integrates with broader philosophical and religious understandings of death. Many traditions, from ancient Egyptian mysticism to Hindu and Buddhist teachings, have long recognized death as the beginning of a new stage of consciousness, not an abrupt cessation. Rituals like lighting candles, burning incense, chanting prayers, or holding vigil can be seen as not only ways to comfort the living, but also to guide the disembodied soul. These acts offer tangible expressions of love, remembrance, and release. By acknowledging the subtle presence of the departed, we build an environment where they can feel safe, relinquishing final attachments, and begin the journey. We might also examine the metaphorical implications of birth. Just as a fetus transitions into an independent life at birth, emerging from one reality to an entirely new one, death similarly can be viewed as a second birth one into the expanded realms of spirit. Casey underscored this correlation, suggesting that just as a newborn baby needs time to adjust to breathing and seeing in a vast new world, a soul also needs an adjustment period to become accustomed to the ethereal environment. There is no universal timetable for this acclimation. Readiness depends on the level of emotional, mental, and spiritual preparation attained in life, as well as the soul's specific calling and attachments. In practical terms, what does this mean for those of us still on Earth? It points to a profound interplay between the grieving process and the soul's post-mortem journey. While it's natural to experience deep sorrow, our emotional states can extend a certain energy toward the recently departed. When we are stuck in guilt or resentment, we can inadvertently anchor the soul in a state of tension. When we cultivate acceptance and send love, we offer a gentle nudge toward healing. This does not mean we should repress our grief. Rather, it suggests we allow ourselves to mourn in a way that ultimately moves toward peace and understanding. Furthermore, stories abound of people receiving reassurance from departed loved ones in dreams, meditative states, or subtle synchronicities. From Casey's vantage point, these are genuine encounters. The soul, existing in a dimension free from the usual constraints of space and time, can visit multiple family members or close friends, simultaneously offering comfort or closure where needed. These interactions might be fleeting, an embrace felt in a dream or the sudden recall of a phrase the person used to say. But the warmth and reassurance often linger, serving as a testament to the abiding bond that persists across the veil. Putting this all together, we see that the time immediately following death is dynamic, replete with opportunities for both the living and the departed to reconcile lingering emotional threads. Whether the soul stay lasts for days, weeks, or lingers for years, there is a guiding intelligence, a spiritual generosity that upholds each being. Ultimately, all souls move on, but interplay of love intention and conscious support. As we transition to a deeper exploration of the soul's journey, it becomes clear that the in-between period is neither simple nor monolithic. Instead, it reflects the depth and variety of emotional energies a soul carries out of its physical life. Edgar Cayce underscored that these energies act almost like gravitational forces, guiding or holding the soul in particular states of being. It might be tempting to classify these states simplistically, saying, for example, that love is good and regret is bad. But in truth, Cayce teaches us that every emotion can be both an anchor and a teacher, depending on how the soul confronts and resolves it. Take love, often perceived as the highest and purest of human emotions. In many cases, love propels souls forward into a graceful acceptance of their next stage. Yet love can also bind a soul to the earth plane if it operates from a place of worry or possessiveness. A mother who is afraid to leave her children unsupervised may hover not out of malicious intent, but out of tender concern. While this might bring about a sense of continued guardianship, it can also delay the soul's broader transition. Similarly, regret can function as a lesson urging the soul to reflect on missed opportunities for kindness or truth. If approached with openness and guided by spiritual insight, it can lead to profound insights and readiness to move on. However, regret can just as easily morph into stubborn guilt, forming a rigid barrier that stalls spiritual progress. This is why Cayce put such emphasis on the idea that souls are never entirely isolated. He believed that angel spiritual guides, more advanced souls, step forward, offering perspective and support. These guides do not impose solutions or commands. They offer loving clarity and reassurance, helping newly separated souls realize they are not condemned to roam or remain in limbo. In fact, this assistance can manifest in many forms: a dreamlike presence, a voice that gently breaks through confusion, or a luminous vision that sparks recognition. Interestingly, while strong emotions can keep a soul earthbound for a time, the experience itself can be healing if the soul uses this period to acknowledge the truths it might have avoided in life. The illusions we harbor during our earthly tenure, like a sense of absolute separation from others, can be softened by seeing things from a new vantage point. When observing the grief of loved ones from the other side, a soul may come to understand how deeply it was cherished. Or conversely, it might see the lingering effects of anger or bitterness it instigated, leading to a yearning for reconciliation. Either way, the intangible nature of this liminal space becomes an arena for profound self-awareness. All the while, the clock we know so well continues ticking for us here, but for the departed soul, time loses its familiar grip. Hours, days, years, these no longer serve as fixed markers. Instead, the soul's perception is shaped by the emotional and spiritual work it undertakes. What might feel like eternity to us could be experienced as a brief interlude for them, and vice versa. Thus, from the vantage point of Earth, it's important to recognize that length of time spent lingering is less crucial than the quality of the soul's gradual awakening to its new reality. In Edgar Cayce's teachings, one of the most pivotal elements in determining how swiftly a soul moves beyond the in-between is the life review. Often referred to in various spiritual and near-death accounts, the life review is a panoramic replay of the incarnated life where every moment resurfaces, not merely as a detached memory, but as an immersive experience. The soul does not just watch ripple effects of its choices kind and cruel alike from the inside. This review is not framed as a courtroom trial with a prosecutor and judge. Rather, it's seen as a profound awakening, one that fosters growth and understanding. According to Casey, souls in this process are met with immeasurable compassion from higher beings. These beings do not pronounce guilt or innocence. They hold space, reflecting unconditional acceptance and allowing the soul to recognize and integrate lessons at its own pace. The purpose is not to shame the soul, but to illuminate where genuine healing and evolution can occur. Remarkably, this reflective process extends well beyond the strictly personal. A soul perceives how its individual journey weaves into the tapestry of family, community, and collective consciousness. Acts of love or generosity gain renewed significance as the soul experiences the waves of hope and positivity they brought to others. By contrast, moments of anger, betrayal, or apathy might reveal areas where compassion fell short. Through such revelations, a soul can pivot from denial or justification to sincere remorse and then to a deeper resolution. It's often in this stage that attachments to earth may lessen, not because the soul stops caring about loved ones, but because it begins to understand the grand continuity of relationships. The love shared remains unbroken, but the soul recognizes that physical presence is no longer the only mode of connection. Freed of a body, a broader perspective unfolds. This broader perspective might prompt the soul to interact more energetically through dream signs or synchronicities rather than through fleeting glimpses in physical spaces. For some souls, this life review and subsequent release unfolds quickly, especially if they carry a clear conscience and an open heart into the afterlife. For others, it can take what we perceive as years. Trauma guilt or deep-seated resentments can cause a soul to revisit certain moments in the life review multiple times, like a student revisiting a difficult lesson. Whether quick or prolonged, Casey taught that patience reigns supreme. Time itself in these higher planes is merely a construct. The soul moves when it is ready, when understanding has ripened, and it can surrender the illusions or burdens that no longer serve it. A salient point in Casey's readings is that the departed soul's healing does not occur in isolation. The energetic relationship with those still living continues to be profoundly influential. When we on Earth maintain a posture of unresolved anger or clinging despair, it creates an energetic tether that can magnify a soul's sense of unfinished business. Conversely, when we practice forgiveness, acceptance, and loving remembrance, we send out a resonance of warmth and light. This resonance can assist the soul's process of realizing its new condition, helping it find greater peace. One might imagine this as a two-way channel. The living send emotional signals, whether through conscious rituals like prayers, or letters written to the departed, or through inadvertent waves of anguish. The soul sensing these signals can either feel compelled to return and soothe, or weighed down by an atmosphere of guilt or regret. Far from being an esoteric notion, this phenomenon appears in countless anecdotal experiences. Loved ones reporting visitation dreams at precisely the moment they find inner forgiveness, or alternately sharing stories of poltergeist-like disturbances when raw bitterness lingers. However, it's critical not to interpret this as a blame dynamic, wherein grieving individuals of emotion. Even then, the guiding presence of angel spiritual teachers, or even the soul's own higher self, remains continually available to lessen that weight. For the living, one of the most healing practices is direct communication. Some individuals write heartfelt letters addressed to the departed, pouring out everything they left unsaid. Others light candles or hold a personal ceremony, reciting words of release or love. These seemingly simple gestures carry substantial weight in a realm where intentions and emotional resonance function as primary forms of communication. Another crucial piece is recognizing that the soul is not static. It evolves. If it lingers near the earthly plane initially, that does not predestine it to remain there indefinitely. It may oscillate between concern for loved ones and an inner call toward higher realms of peace and wisdom. Over time and with mutual emotional support, most souls find the readiness to move into more light-filled realms, shedding the denser energies that kept them tethered. It's a cooperative dance as the living find closure, and healing souls often interpret that as a signal that their presence in the old familiar spaces is no longer necessary, granting them the freedom to rise further into spiritual dimensions. Once the soul has reconciled the most pressing emotional ties to its recent life, it often drifts into a phase Casey referred to as the borderland. Neither entirely locked into Earth's vibrational field, nor fully absorbed in what many call heaven, this borderland is a transitional space. It could be likened to a waiting room of sorts, but unlike a conventional waiting area, it's far from passive. It's a place of deep introspection, healing, and continued guidance. Within the borderland, souls frequently encounter other beings. Some might be ancestors, guides, or spiritual mentors who have an affinity for the type of lessons the newly arrived soul is facing. Communication here transcends spoken language. Instead, it operates through telepathic resonance, empathic understanding, and shared spiritual insight. The soul is invited gently but persistently to reflect on the life just lived. The life review continues, but now with greater clarity, less overshadowed by lingering earthly concerns. During this stage, certain belief systems suggest the soul might even get glimpses of multiple lifetimes, unraveling karmic patterns. While Casey indeed discussed reincarnation and hinted that many souls choose to return for further growth, this borderland is often the vantage point where such decisions begin to form. Yet the emphasis is not on immediate planning for another life. It's on assimilation, on truly comprehending the meaning behind relationships, events, and emotional currents from the life now past. An integral part of this process involves forgiveness in a more universal sense, extending not just to personal connections, but also to one's own self. Missteps, perceived failures, or harmful actions can weigh heavily until they are seen through the lens of both human limitation and divine compassion. In these moments, guides may appear in forms recognizable or symbolic. Some souls perceive them as luminous angels, while others might see them as revered religious figures or ancestors. The underlying consistency is that these guides exude acceptance and unconditional support. From the perspective of the living, this borderland can be a time in which the deceased no longer feels as immediately present. Loved ones might sense a diminishing frequency of signs or dreams. This doesn't necessarily mean the departed so with respect for the soul's own process of growth. The borderland phase can last what the living might perceive as brief moments or long stretches. Just as with the initial period of lingering near the physical realm, time in this zone follows a higher rhythm shaped by readiness, acceptance, and the soul's willingness to release self-limiting patterns. Eventually, as the soul assimilates its lessons and surrenders residual emotional baggage, it naturally gravitates toward a more luminous state, what Casey might call the threshold of full spiritual realization. An especially intriguing element of Casey's teachings is the acknowledgement that not all souls transition through these phases at the same pace, nor do they necessarily follow an identical sequence. Human existence is marked by an extraordinary diversity of inner experiences, and likewise our paths beyond death can take varied routes. Some individuals shaped by strong religious convictions might experience phenomena aligning closely with their beliefs, visions of beloved saints, angels, or a tunnel of light. Others, less anchored in specific doctrines, may encounter more abstract or symbolic landscapes guided by an innate spiritual intelligence that resonates with their unique consciousness. Yet beneath these diverse manifestations, certain universal principles hold. Compassion, for instance, arises as a universal sound. Souls immersed in compassion, whether during life or soon after leaving the physical, often radiate a calm acceptance that accelerates their release from earthly attachments. The presence of lingering bitterness or fear tends to prolong the transitional experience, though it can ultimately yield insight that deepens the soul's future expressions of love and understanding. One might ask, is there a risk that a soul becomes permanently stuck? Casey and similar mystic traditions assure us that the universe operates under a grand tapestry of divine patience. There is no harsh clock ticking off final deadlines, no stern cosmic judge shaking a gavel in final verdict. Even in cases where a soul remains close to the earth plane for what seems like years, in human perception, there is always a pathway toward healing and elevation. Spiritual guides consistently extend help, orchestrating synchronicities or subtle awakenings to encourage a soul to move on. It is also worth addressing the question of hauntings or ghostly apparitions. In the context of Casey's framework, these can sometimes be souls that remain near because of particularly powerful, unresolved energies, intense sorrow, unrelenting guilt, or deep confusion about their departure. These souls are not malevolent by default. Rather, they are caught in a loop of emotional memory or a misunderstanding of their new state. Compassion and understanding from both spiritual helpers and living individuals can help resolve such situations, assisting the spirit to recognize higher pathways of existence. Meanwhile, in many near-death experiences that parallel Casey's material, individuals who have clinically died and returned speak of profound peace, unimaginable love, and a sense of unity. This suggests that beyond these initial transitional phases, beyond the lingering and the borderland, lies an expansive realm of tranquility where the soul recognizes itself as part of a larger, luminous whole. To arrive there, each soul passes through its own process of clarification and release. It is not a uniform journey, but it is always guided by the principle that love ultimately reigns as the most powerful force, illuminating the way forward for every traveler. As the soul journeys deeper into the in-between realms, it becomes more receptive to a is intimately connected to the soul's own divine nature. Approaching the light represents a crossing into deeper understanding and assimilation of truth. Yet it is not a compulsory leap. The soul's free will remains intact. Some souls hesitate out of fear that the light will expose their flaws, or that it demands a level of spiritual readiness they do not possess. Others embrace it willingly, finding in it an overwhelming sense of homecoming unity and love. The crucial realization here, according to Casey, is that the light never judges. It simply reveals. The real transformation unfolds as the soul recognizes this revelation for what it truly is, a mirror of infinite compassion, welcoming all aspects of its journey, both painful and joyous. In that luminous presence, any lingering illusions of separation, guilt, or shame begin to dissolve. A sense of oneness emerges, oneness with the source, oneness with all consciousness. It is often described in near-death experiences as a realm overflowing with unconditional acceptance. Any apprehension about meeting some cosmic tribunal fades into an awareness that the soul is truly facing itself, its own choices, and the reverberations of those choices throughout time. Guides or angelic figures can be present in this light, providing support, comforting messages, and gentle guidance, especially for souls still tentative about releasing the final vestiges of earthly entanglements. This stage also offers an important perspective for those still living. Many who have had near-death experiences describe returning with a renewed or radically altered viewpoint on earthly problems. They speak of the insignificance of petty conflicts, the transcendent importance of love and kindness, and a universal interconnectedness that defies the ego's narrow limits. While Casey did not specify that every individual experiences the same vision of the light, he did maintain that the essence of this radiance is accessible to all souls once they are ready. For those grieving the knowledge that loved ones can access this realm of healing and unity may provide solace. It implies that suffering, regret, or unresolved issues do not define the departed's eternal trajectory. Rather, these can be stepping stones leading to ever-expanding empathy and compassion. This by no means trivializes our losses or the anguish that follows a death, but it reframes it within a context of spiritual continuity, suggesting that no life is wasted and no lesson is learned in vain. Every tear, every triumph, and every unspoken word can ultimately be woven into a tapestry of growth. Thus, the light stands as both a final frontier of this transitional journey and a gateway to further possibilities, whether it be higher realms of service, renewed incarnations, or forms of consciousness that our current mortal minds can scarcely envision. To Casey, the core of this realization is that the soul never truly ceases. It only changes form, shedding layers of limitation in an ever-deepening embrace of divine unity. Stepping more decisively toward the light involves an act of surrender, letting go of identities and attachments that no longer serve the soul's evolving purpose. In Casey's interpretation, once a soul embraces this surrender, it is not annihilated or dissolved into nothingness. Instead, it merges with a higher vibrational frequency that many spiritual teachings call the higher self, or the divine spark. This merging does not erase individuality, but therefore love, empathy, creativity are not lost. They are refined and amplified in ways we can barely comprehend while in a body. In this refined state, old wounds and regrets lose their sting not because they are dismissed, but because they are understood within a wider, all-encompassing truth. Compassion for oneself and others flourishes, and a clear sense emerges that life on Earth was just one chapter of a much more expansive narrative. A key question that arises here is, what happens after this merging? Are souls eternally at rest in some blissful domain, or do they continue to evolve? Casey supported the concept of ongoing evolution. In some cases, the soul may choose to remain in higher realms of learning, service, or creation, working alongside other elevated beings to assist both the living and the newly departed. In other scenarios, the soul may opt to reincarnate either on Earth or elsewhere, drawn by the call to master new lessons or to help humanity in transformative ways. It's crucial to note that reincarnation in Casey's worldview isn't about being forced into another birth as a punishment. Instead, it's an opportunity aligned with the soul's broader spiritual development. Some souls have repeated incarnations out of love for humanity or a desire to cultivate particular virtues, patience, humility, courage, or unconditional love. For them, the decision to return is more akin to volunteering for a challenging assignment than fulfilling a mandated sentence. Another dimension of this conversation involves soul growth. Throughout multiple lifetimes, souls can travel together, sometimes shifting roles. One might be a mother in one life, a best friend in the next, or even an adversary in another. According to Casey, these arrangements facilitate deeper lessons and reciprocal growth. The strong bonds we form on Earth often have a resonance that transcends one lifetime, weaving complex patterns of relationship across epochs of existence. Understanding this can recast the pain of losing someone dear as a temporary goodbye rather than a permanent farewell. Ultimately, crossing into the light is far from an endpoint. While it marks the culmination of the immediate post-death healing, it also opens vistas of possibility. The soul rejoices in a fuller expression of its essence, and then decides how best to continue expanding in harmony with the cosmic flow. This cyclical, ever-renewing journey resonates with the ancient wisdom traditions that emphasize the soul's endurance and the creative intelligence guiding all existence. One of the more practical takeaways from Casey's teachings is how these insights into death and the afterlife can profoundly shape how we live. Knowing that every emotion, every intention, and every unresolved thread can echo beyond the moment of death encourages a more conscious approach to relationships and self-awareness. It offers a chance to practice kindness, honesty, and forgiveness with greater frequency, aware that our interactions form the tapestry of experiences we carry forward. From this vantage, preparing for the final transition is not about dwelling on morbidity or gloom. Rather, it can be seen as a way to refine our souls while still in physical form. Practices such as meditation, prayer, or reflective journaling help us become acquainted with our internal landscape, clarifying what we truly value and gently exposing the pockets of fear or unhealed trauma we might otherwise ignore. By addressing these issues now, we not only enrich our present relationships, we also set a gentler stage for our own inevitable passage. Furthermore, this perspective has implications for how we support others who are dying. If we recognize that confusion attachment or unspoken goodbyes can hinder a smooth transition, we might be more inclined to engage in open-hearted conversations, to grant forgiveness where it is needed, or simply to sit in calm, loving presence. Rituals that once might have seemed archaic, lighting candles, reciting prayers, guiding someone through shared memories, gain renewed significance. They become more than comforting gestures. They serve as energetic signposts that guide the soul toward peace. Casey also highlighted that while the soul moves on, the quality of our thoughts and emotions after someone's death can still ripple through to them in subtle ways. In other words, remembering a loved one with deep hostility or bitterness does affect the ongoing ties in the spiritual dimension. Conversely, sincere love and compassion can form a bridge that enriches both sides of the veil. Many families find comfort and resolution by holding memorial services that focus not solely on loss, but on celebrating the essence of the departed, a reminder that while the body has been laid to rest, the soul's story continues in luminous layers of reality. For individuals who are skeptical or uncertain about life after death, Casey's perspectives offer an invitation to explore their doubts in an open-minded way. The concept that consciousness persists and evolves is not confined to any single religion or dogma. Instead, it aligns with the testimonies of people across cultures and epochs, spiritual leaders, mystics, and those who have brushed close to death. Even scientific studies into near-death experiences, despite not uniformly proving an afterlife, often reveal a pattern of encounters that mirror Casey's descriptions of peace review and guidance. Thus, integrating these teachings into daily life can be less about dogmatic acceptance and more about cultivating awareness of life's spiritual dimension. By honoring the potential continuity of consciousness, we foster a reverence for both living and departed souls, allowing compassion and understanding to serve as cornerstones of our interactions. When we consider the phenomenon of souls visiting after death, those fleeting gentle presences felt in our homes, in dreams, or in serendipitous moments, Casey's viewpoint provides a reassuring framework. These appearances are not attempts to frighten us. Rather, they are gestures of connection, communication, or resolution. A soul may linger just long enough to impart a final message such as forgiveness or reassurance of safety. Sometimes it might be an effort to allay the bereaved's anxiety about whether the departed is at peace. Dreams in particular often serve as a bridge between worlds. During sleep, the conscious mind relaxes its grip, allowing deeper states of perception to emerge. A visitation dream stands out from ordinary dreaming through its vividness and emotional impact. Loved ones often appear younger, radiant, or in a state that exudes peace, reflecting the well-being of their soul. Waking up from such a dream can leave one enveloped in a sense of solace or closure. Casey believed these dream encounters could be just as real in their own way as any physical meeting, offering legitimate glimpses into the soul's continued journey. In other instances, signs can manifest through synchronicities like a favorite song playing unexpectedly or an animal appearing persistently at meaningful moments. Anecdotes abound of clocks stopping at the exact time of a loved one's death or of lights flickering precisely when a departed individual's name is mentioned. While it is prudent to maintain a balanced skepticism and not overinterpret every random event, the recurring nature and emotional resonance of certain occurrences can feel like a gentle nudge from beyond. For the soul making these visits, the intention might be multilayered. these encounters can be mutually beneficial, alleviating guilt, soothing heartbreak, and allowing spiritual truth to permeate our everyday world. An important caveat is that intense yearning for communication can also become an obstacle. In Casey's view, desperation or fixation can create emotional turbulence that overshadows authentic connection. This does not mean one should stifle grief. Rather, it suggests that a balanced openness, one that embraces both sadness and acceptance, fosters a clearer channel for genuine spiritual contact. Moreover, consistent seeking of mediums or repeated requests for signs might inadvertently generate confusion or even attract less refined energies. Ultimately, if such contact does occur, it's often best to approach it with humility, gratitude, and a willingness to let go. By doing so, we honor not only our own emotional and spiritual needs, but also the departed soul's path, which may be leading it beyond the familiar spaces of earthly memory, toward new realms of luminous growth. As we explore further, Casey's model for post-death evolution emphasizes that the soul engages in profound healing on the other side, especially once it has released most immediate attachments and begun ascending into realms of higher vibration. Yet what does healing entail for a soul that no longer struggles with physical ailments? According to Casey, the pain is no longer localized in the body. There is no ailing organ or broken bone to mend. Instead, the healing moves to subtler levels, emotional wounds, mental constructs, and spiritual misconceptions. In this sense, the healing is akin to a reorientation or recalibration of consciousness. Traumas or deep emotional imprints from life might still echo in the soul's vibratory field. Guilt over unkept promises or anguish from inflicted harm can linger as energetic signatures. Within these higher spiritual realms, those patterns can be re-examined in a compassionate, illuminating light. Guides acting as patient counselors help the soul unravel tight knots of self-judgment or resentment. The process is thorough, but enveloped in understanding as each layer of resistance is gently softened. During this phase, the soul might also gain clarity about unresolved questions, why certain challenges arose in life, why particular relationships unfolded the way they did, or how personal struggles connected to larger themes in the soul's journey. The vantage point from beyond the physical reveals the bigger picture, often highlighting how adversity was intricately woven with opportunities for growth and love. Such revelations can dispel bitterness and blame, replacing them with gratitude and acceptance. Another facet of this healing is the dissolving of egoic patterns. In life, we often identify so strongly with our societal roles, spouse, parent, employee, artist, or friend, that these roles can overshadow our essence. In higher realms, the soul sheds these temporary identities, remembering itself as a timeless spark of consciousness. This does not nullify the richness of experiences. It simply places them in perspective, showing them as stepping stones rather than ultimate definitions. As a result, many souls radiate a sense of lightness and serenity, finally free from the limiting beliefs they carried during mortality. In certain spiritual teachings, there is also a notion that souls meet with advanced beings, sometimes referred to as ascended masters or higher dimensional mentors, who provide specialized insights. These interactions can deepen the healing, pointing the soul toward universal truths about love, interconnectedness, and cosmic purpose. While Casey did not always detail the nature of these higher beings with precision, he recognized their existence as loving presences whose very vibration Knowing this might lessen the sting of loss, helping us trust that life's lessons continue to bloom in ways that eventually turn heartbreak into wisdom and separation into a deeper form of spiritual intimacy. Following this stage of healing and integration, the soul reaches a crossroads. Some souls may elect to dwell longer in these uplifting dimensions, absorbing wisdom, collaborating with guides to assist others, or simply resting in the serenity they might never have tasted so deeply while alive. Others, propelled by a sense of unfinished tasks or fresh callings, decide to undertake another journey in a physical form, what we refer to as reincarnation. In Casey's worldview, reincarnation is not an endless loop of suffering, but a tapestry of evolving experiences that refine the soul's capacity to embody divine qualities across multiple lifetimes. However, the soul does not merely slip blindly into another body. According to Casey, and corroborated by various Eastern philosophies, there is a planning or blueprinting phase. The soul, alongside guiding intelligences, evaluates the lessons gleaned from the last life, discerns areas needing further development, and selects contexts, families, culture, challenges that can foster that growth. Rather than random assignment, it's a dynamic choice, shaped by karmic threads, reciprocal actions that connect souls across incarnations and spiritual readiness. Some souls are even said to choose complex or difficult lives out of compassion, hoping to elevate broader collective consciousness or to balance personal and collective energies. Casey pointed out that free will remains central. Although certain karmic patterns and soul group contracts might nudge the soul in specific directions, it retains the power to choose its next steps. This iterative process continues until the soul evolves to a point where incarnation in a dense physical plane is no longer necessary, where unity with the divine becomes its primary state of being. Yet even then, some souls volunteer to return, acting as spiritual teachers or conduits of healing. Back on Earth, we sometimes sense these deeper currents. We meet new acquaintances who feel strangely familiar. We confront recurring challenges that push us toward growth we previously resisted. The lens of reincarnation offers an explanation. We are encountering echoes of old storylines and uncompleted lessons. This does not absolve us from responsibility for our current choices. In fact, it underscores the gravity of how our actions now can ripple through multiple lifetimes. Significantly, none of this negates the love that we share with those who have passed. If a cherished grandparent or partner reincarnates, it doesn't erase the spiritual bond cultivated previously. Instead, Casey's teachings suggest that love transcends time, and these connections can reemerge in new configurations. That bond becomes a living thread that surfaces again and again, weaving us together in dynamic interplay across epochs. Hence, while death might appear to be the finale of consciousness, the underlying reality is far more intricate. The soul rests, learns, heals, and if it chooses, re-enters the physical realm for renewed experiences. Each step furthers the unfolding of the soul's potential, guided by a divine intelligence that remains intimately attuned to every spark of awareness. When viewed through this lens, the notion of haunting takes on a more empathetic tone. If a soul is perceived as wandering or restless, it might be wrestling with the confusion that arises when confronted with an unexpected death or with unrepentant emotional burdens from its previous life. Yet Casey's perspective, shared by a wide range of spiritual traditions, posits that no soul is forsaken nudge to release their intense fixation on earthly scenarios and step into a broader awareness. Concurrently, the living can provide assistance through heartfelt offerings of love or prayer. Instead of responding to an otherworldly presence with dread, we might consider approaching it with understanding and compassion. Some individuals even conduct blessings or invite the unsettled spirit to enter the light, suggesting that it is safe and that forgiveness awaits. While such practices may seem strange to purely rationalist minds, countless anecdotal accounts illustrate how an earnest, caring approach can shift energies in a home or location, bringing peace both to the living and the wandering soul. In discussing apparitions or poltergeist phenomena, Casey implied that these events often correlate with heightened emotional charges, either in the environment or among the living inhabitants. If a house was the scene of intense sorrow or violence, the energetic imprint may linger. A soul with related unresolved trauma could be drawn to it like a magnet to a field that resonates with its own vibrations. Healing that environment through ritual cleansing, prayer, or even therapy for those currently living there can help break the cycle, allowing both living and deceased energies to find equilibrium. This broader viewpoint does not place the afterlife in a strictly good versus evil framework. Even historically monstrous behaviors, Casey maintained, stem from ignorance and distortion rather than irredeemable evil. At death, a soul would face the consequences of its actions in the light of the acutely feeling alive. Although the path to healing might be more arduous, the fundamental potential for redemption remains. According to Casey, divine compassion does not simply vanish for those who have ever prayed. Indeed, the consequences of one's actions must be faced, but always within a context of guidance and the possibility for transformation. Hence, from this vantage phenomena that we label supernatural become comprehensible as natural components of a broader, multidimensional reality. The liminal states after death are not behind an impenetrable wall. They interlace with our day-to-day existence through subtle frequencies of energy, emotion, and thought. When we tune in, whether through empathy, spiritual practice, or simple openness, we can catch glimpses of those intricate connections, discovering that the bond between living and departed is not severed, but ever evolving in subtle and beautiful ways. As we near the conclusion of this expansive journey through Edgar Casey's perspective on death and the afterlife, it is essential to circle back to the core insights that unify his teachings. Perhaps the most fundamental is the notion that death is a gateway, not an endpoint. The soul, continuous and dynamic, crosses this threshold, carrying the essence of who it has become. Love, unhealed pain, regrets, lessons, these all factor into the soul's immediate post-death experiences. Far from a dreadful void, the afterlife serves as a series of transformative intervals where clarity deepens, illusions dissolve, and compassion ultimately prevails. In this vision, there is no rigid divide between life and death. Instead, one can imagine consciousness as an unbroken continuum that extends across multiple dimensions, each with its own laws and frequencies. While embodied on Earth, we remain mostly anchored to physical sensations and linear time. Yet when the body falls away, we awaken to realities shaped by our emotional and spiritual readiness. The soul's capacity to love or to hold fear resonates strongly, determining whether it lingers near the earthly realm or ascends swiftly into luminous states. Significantly, Casey's emphasis on us that we, the living, participate in this grand tapestry. Our thoughts, prayers, and heartfelt intentions reverberate. Whether we choose bitterness or acceptance, condemnation or forgiveness, we contribute to the energetic environment, affecting not only ourselves, but also those who have passed on. This realization can galvanize us to live with greater mindfulness, recognizing that every interaction imprints upon the collective soul experience. And yet none of these teachings aim to trivialize or diminish the pain of loss. Grief, with all its rawness, is a genuine and valid human response. Instead, Casey's message offers a broader context for that grief, showing that what dies is the physical form, not the deeper thread of relationship. The sorrow we feel stems from the finality of our earthly interactions, but it may be eased by the awareness that the soul continues to evolve, perhaps even offering us support from beyond. Finally, the cyclical nature of existence emerges as a unifying thread in Casey's accounts. Life, death, afterlife, and potential rebirth do not unfold randomly, but follow the soul's yearning for growth, compassion, and unity. Whether a soul chooses to linger briefly among loved ones, move swiftly into the light, embark on a new incarnation, or reside in realms of service and learning, each decision is guided by divine intelligence. This blueprint of benevolent order underscores the suggestion that we are at our core, sparks of the divine eternal, capable of love beyond measure, and destined to remember our true nature across the tapestry of countless lifetimes. When we integrate these insights, our perspective on mortality shifts. We see death not as an abrupt calamity, but as a sacred passage in an ongoing story. This shift does not eliminate pain or longing, but it infuses them with meaning, framing our journeys, both living and departed, in a shimmering web of purpose, compassion, and inexhaustible light. In drawing these threads together, we can glean a powerful takeaway. Awareness of the afterlife can enhance the way we live here and now. Recognizing the soul's ongoing voyage invites us to cultivate emotional clarity, forgiveness, and love with renewed urgency. It encourages us to speak our truths and mend our relationships before parting becomes inevitable. Rather than ignoring the reality of death, we can prepare for it in ways that celebrate life, offering kindness to strangers, cherishing moments of joy, and being courageously honest about our deeper feelings. By doing so, we lighten the load of unresolved emotions that might otherwise weigh on our souls at the moment of passing. We also become beacons for those around us, modeling how to integrate spiritual awareness into everyday existence. If, when our hour arrives, we can slip from the body with minimal fear, having communicated our love and regrets openly, we smooth the path not only for ourselves, but for those we leave behind. Their grieving, though still natural and painful, becomes infused with the comfort that arises from closure and genuine connection. From a broader vantage, this perspective fosters a profound sense of interdependence. Lives across generations are interconnected, each influencing the other in visible and invisible ways. The concept of soul groups, those clusters of souls who share repeated incarnations, reveals that our closest friends, family members, and even adversaries may be partners in a grand design of mutual evolution. Thus, the manner in which we handle conflict or the care we show in times of strife can echo through multiple layers of consciousness. Finally, these insights remind us that spirituality is not a purely theoretical pursuit, but a lived experience. Whether we lean on prayer, meditation, mindfulness, or creative expression, any one simple endurance principle: love never dies. In his worldview, love is the common thread that persists through time, transcending the body and weaving souls together in patterns of learning, growth, and reunion. As you hold this vast tapestry in mind, may you find that death no longer looms as a fearful terminus, but becomes a doorway that opens onto further fields of discovery. Amid the sorrow of farewells, there is a quiet assurance that the conversation continues, that the departed will complete their journey, and that in the fullness of cosmic time all are welcomed into the compassionate glow of the infinite light. In concluding this work, remember that these teachings are not a rigid prescription, but an invitation to deeper reflection. Embrace what resonates in your heart and hold space for what remains mysterious. Casey's ultimate gift is the reassurance that our consciousness is vast, sacred, and ever-evolving. Even as we wrestle with the limitations and pains of mortality, we carry within us the seed of eternity, one that promises hope, transformation, and communion, far beyond the boundaries we once assumed.